What's going on, everybody? My name is Firedog and I welcome you back to the channel. Chapter 1037 has sent a huge wave through the community, a wave of theory crafting, discussion, and overall hype for these next few chapters, as not only is Wano's climax coming very soon, we have also been info dumped on potentially one of the greatest pieces of info we've gotten in this series. And today I want to discuss my thoughts and theories on what devil fruit the gorosei we're talking about, who has it, and what does its awakening mean for the story. This video also serves as a buffer video as I'm working on a big project that is going to be a huge surprise. Alright, let's get into it. Firstly, there seems to be a rift in the community about what devil fruit the gorosei are talking about, Luffy's Gomu Gomu no Mi, or if it belongs to Zunisha. And while it does make sense that they were referring to a fruit eaten by Zunisha, given that the next panel features Zunisha for the first time in a few hundred chapters. However, given all that we have learned about Joy Boy, what we learned about the Gomu Gomu no Mi and Sun God Nika, and the other supernova achieving awakening with their fruits, I believe there's only one candidate for this legendary fruit. That's power is so broken and so powerful that it needs to be known as something else by the general public. We know that the world government values the Gomu Gomu no Mi extremely, as they were willing to basically remove one of their finest CP9 members from history simply for failing to protect it from Shanks. Cutting back to when Luffy actually ate the fruit and Shanks saved him from drowning, Shanks' line that his arm is a small sacrifice for the future would make a lot more sense if he knew what the Gomu Gomu no Mi actually was. If you remember, Luffy hadn't declared his dream to become Pirate King yet, so Shanks wasn't making the sacrifice to help make sure that Luffy's dreams came true. We also know that slaves used to worship a deity known as the Sun God Nika, who we first learned about in Skypiea as the deity was worshipped by the Shandians on Jaya. Nika is said to have brought peace and freedom to slaves. And what other prominent figure do we know that made a promise to free an enslaved people? Exactly, Joy Boy. Pretty much every time Joy Boy is mentioned or name dropped, it is either by an enslaver such as Kaido, or those enslaved or oppressed by the world government, such as the Fishman, or most notably Robin, who first name dropped Joy Boy back in chapter 628. Kaido, who is supposedly someone who was meant to be Joy Boy, but ultimately failed, has become an enslaver. He promised King, whose entire race has been wiped out and experimented on by the world government, that he was the only person who could change the world. Comparing the bright-eyed, smiling Oni we saw back in his flashback to now, Kaido has lost all of those ambitions of changing the world for the better, dedicating himself to causing as much chaos as he can with the greatest war the world has ever known. He has enslaved the people of Wano to produce weapons and now plans on killing everyone in the Flower Capital, turning Wano into the new pirate paradise. Seeing someone who was meant to be Joy Boy turn into an enslaver and dictator actually makes a lot of narrative sense, as we get to see the polar opposite of what Luffy has embodied the entire series from a failed Joy Boy, confirming that Luffy is in fact the Joy Boy of this generation. And furthermore, if Sun God Nika is directly tied to Joy Boy, then Luffy's fruit the Gomu Gomu no Mi having the abilities of Nika would also work really well narratively. So what abilities would these be? Well, I believe we have already seen some of them. Luffy's Red Hawk is without a doubt one of these abilities, as a sun god would without a doubt be able to manipulate fire. And Gear 4th, as Hyogoro mentioned, resembled the figure of a deity. But what about what the gorosei mentioned? They said that the legendary fruit they were talking about was given a different name by the world government and hasn't awakened in years. So maybe Sun God Nika has the power to stretch like a rubber person would. They just gave it the name Gomu Gomu no Mi so no one would figure out its true potential, and they just prayed that no one would ever awaken it. But with the other supernova achieving their awakening, Luffy is going to have to awaken his soon. To use Red Hawk, Luffy has to use Armament Haki on his fist. Haki being willpower, the activation of these Sun God abilities could be the use of Haki. Gear 4 requires the use of Haki as well, and has been directly tied to a deity by Hyogoro as mentioned. As we know, inherited will has always been a huge part of One Piece and is primarily tied to Luffy's Straw Hat, which, I agree with Ohara, does look like a sun rising on the horizon. Which, Sun God Nika, Straw Hat Luffy, the Straw Hat looking like a rising sun? Do I need to point out these tying similarities? And we all know the similarities between the figure of Sun God Nika and Luffy dancing around the bonfire in Skypiea, in the land where Sun God Nika was once worshipped. There are so many signs pointing to Luffy not only inheriting the will of Joy Boy, but also that of Sun God Nika through his devil fruit. So to try and organize it, I'll try to summarize what we have discussed. With all we know about Joy Boy and his promises to free those who are enslaved or oppressed, as well as Sun God Nika, who is said to have freed slaves, it is evident that Luffy has inherited the will of both Joy Boy, as he hates how the world government takes away the freedoms of everyone, as well as Sun God Nika, who liberated slaves. So with both of these inherited wills, Luffy will be able to not only free the fishmen, the minks, and the giants, but all people. And if Luffy is still to destroy Fishman Island, I know a great way he could do it. Destroying the world government at its core, Marijois and the Red Line would ultimately free all of the people of the One Piece world, and I believe wholeheartedly that this is what awaits our Joy Boy Sun God Rubberman Luffy. The series will end with Luffy himself destroying the Red Line, and I'm very excited to see that. I hope you enjoyed this theory. I know it was a short one, but if you did, make sure to leave a like, and while you're there, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell, as it's completely free and you can opt out at any time. Leave any comments you have down below, and I'd also like to give a big shout out to my friend OEK, who made the banner art for the channel. It's a really great product, and he communicated really well with me during the project, so I insist you go check him out if you have any need for a banner for your YouTube, Twitch, or social media accounts. I hope you're all happy and healthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.
So, what it take to be an icon? All in your desktop, so I just might already be one. Might meet with the label, it feels on the table one sign, but I'm down for a free lunch. Just speaking my heat-seeking